the right or the left or above and below. Right? We go into offices and we sit in cubicles and we don't have clues to the right or the left. And not having face-to-face contact with people, it promotes isolation, and isolation leads to depression. So the more we can get together with groups and have face-to-face contact with people, the better our health will be. This is one of the reasons why I love working in groups, and it's part of you need to keep showing up in something like this. This is really good for your well-being. And the next one is humor. There have been numerous studies that have looked at the health benefits of laughter. And if you have a good laugh, it gives your immune system a boost, and it also releases beta endorphins in the brain, which are your own natural painkillers. And then the last one is getting enough sleep and rest. And I think 70% of people in America today are not getting enough sleep, having trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. And it's usually the number one symptom that I see in my program. It's either insomnia or arthritis pain, things like that. Okay. So 69 to 90% of the problems of being people and doctors are stress related, and yet we go to our doctors and they never ask us about stress in our lives. Yeah. What is stress? It's a perception of a threat to one's physical or psychological well-being. And it's the feeling that I can't handle this, I can't cope. Right? And stress comes at us from many, many different directions. You know, it may have been stressful getting here tonight because of traffic. You may go home tonight and get an upsetting email. You may get stressed sitting in the doctor's office. You may watch the horrible 11 o'clock news at night, and then you have all this stuff of the whole world coming at you. And not all stress is negative. You can get stressed about very positive things as well. Getting up and talking in front of a group of people that you don't know could cause you stress. So it comes at us through many, many different avenues, and you just have to open your eyes to what it is. See who pushes your buttons, and then you can change some of your reactions and responses. Okay, well, the trouble with you, David, is you don't know what the word relax means. And a lot of the people who come to my program are exactly like this guy, David. Clenching their jaws, clenching their fists, their shoulders are up like this. Right? And if we walk around like David, we're not breathing. We're breathing from the top third of our lungs. I want each one of you to extend your dominant arm. Make your elbow absolutely as tight as you possibly can. And now make your fist as tight as you possibly can. Tight, tight, tight. What's happening to your breathing when you're doing this? Stopping. That's just tension in your arm. Right? So if we're walking around like David, we're breathing from the top third of our lungs. We don't get an exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, so we're exhausted by the end of the day. And I have a patient, she says to me, you know, Ann, I can always tell when I'm stressed. I'm wearing my shoulders as earrings. So, I actually teach people to breathe. You have a sheet in your handouts called minis, and I'd like to teach you a couple of these right now. Minis are little short relaxation techniques that don't require a CD, an audio tape, an iPad, anything formal. It should have been in the packet I handed.
Yes, the second page.
Okay, I'm going to teach you a couple of these. They're all wrong. Yeah. If you don't have a handout, share with whoever's sitting to your right or to your left. It's okay. We'll make copies and more of them at the end. So this is just going to practice. You don't necessarily have to have it in your hand. Okay, the first mini I'm going to teach you. Let's say we start with the number 5. And so you're going to breathe in, and as you exhale, you'll think 5. You'll breathe in, 4. And we'll work our way down one number quietly to ourselves on each out breath until we get to 0. Okay? So sit up straight in your chair, and you want to uncross your arms and legs and close your eyes once again. I'm going to lead you through this. So whenever you're ready, take in a comfortable, easy breath. As you exhale, think 5, 4, Breathing in, 4, in, 3, in, 2, in, 0. Open your eyes. See in just 5 breaths. Feel a little different. Now, some of you might say, what do these possibly have to do with anything? I have people practice these at night when they can't go to sleep. So lie in bed, pick a number, maybe start with the number 20, and just focus on breathing and counting. You get out of your head, and usually by the time you're at 10, you fall asleep. I take these simple techniques into scary places in the hospital. And I did a study 2 years ago at Dana-Farber, which is a cancer hospital up in Boston. And I worked with a group of men who had just been told that they had prostate cancer, and they were going to go through radiation. And I met with each man individually 6 weeks in a row just before going off to radiation. And I will tell you, each man confided in me that he was terrified. Terrified because they were going to be radiated to a vulnerable part of their bodies, and terrified because they could get burned, left incontinent, impotent, who knows what. And after about 3 weeks of working with me, I began to hear things like, well, radiation is a piece of cake now. I just go in, I get up on that table, I lie down, I start breathing and counting, and the next thing I know, radiation is over. And I start to hear from them, I haven't slept this well in 6 months. All I'm teaching them are the 2 things that I've taught you so far. I did a study last year with women who were going through breast biopsies. And I met with each woman for an hour before she would go into the biopsy. And I would teach my longer relaxation exercise, about half an hour. And then I would teach minis. And the women would go into the breast biopsy procedure. They'd get up on the table and start breathing and counting. And the nurses were blind as to who was in my arm of the study. And they came out at the end and they said, we could tell which of the women worked with Webster because they went through the procedure so calmly. And the women in my arm of the study also reported that they felt very cared for by the hospital because of their experience. So I'm on a mission to get these things into scary places. Breathing and counting, it's nothing, but it can have such an impact upon your life. Okay, let's do one more mini. Mini number 4 on your list I really like. How many of you have read anything by Thich Nhat Hanh? Wonderful. This is a good group. Thich Nhat Hanh is a Vietnamese Buddhist. And by the way, he's coming to the Beacon Theater here in New York in September 7, in case you want to know that. This is his favorite mini. On the in-breath, you think I am. On the out-breath, at peace. So let's do that. Sit up straight once again and close your eyes. So whenever you're ready, you take in an easy breath, thinking, I am. Exhale, at peace. Breathe in, I am. Exhale, at peace. Breathe in, I am. Exhale. Breathe in, I am. Exhale, at peace. Open your eyes. So start to put minis into your day. Eyes open, eyes closed, doesn't matter. The beginning of my relaxation technique, when we started this evening, I had you take in a breath, hold it a few seconds, and then let it go. It's a mini also. So you have a sheet on those. Thank you. I take yawning as a compliment. Yawn with gusto. What are you doing? You're taking a deep breath, right? Thank you. Do not stifle yawns in here. Okay. Well, any idiot can face a crisis. It's the day-to-day living that wears us out. And I give this to my patients. I mean, many of my patients who have cancer or very serious illnesses say, I told my doctor I was going to beat this, or I can handle the chemotherapy, whatever. And then they get in line at Whole Foods, and the line is, 25 people long, and then they're in a hurry, and the next thing you know, they're getting, totally crazy. So there are a lot of small things in each day that push our buttons. Okay, I love this concept. This is Bruce McEwen at Rockefeller University. Have any of you ever heard Bruce speak? Okay, well, he's a very brilliant scientist. And McEwen says if we were all normal, we go through life like the bottom line. So say you get up in the morning, and whatever it is, you've overslept, or you get onto the subway, and the subway's late, and you're meant to be someplace, and here it is, it's 8:15, and you're already stressed. But you manage to calm down. And then say you get off to your office, or you have an appointment in the doctor's office, and they keep you waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and there you are, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You manage to calm down, and then you get home at night, and you have an argument with your spouse or partner, where you get an upsetting phone call or an email, and there you are at 11 o'clock, and this is why you can't go to sleep at night. And somehow we manage to calm down. But we do not go through life like the bottom line. McEwen says we go through life like the top line, where things begin to accumulate. So you get up in the morning, you've overslept, you're late getting to wherever it is you're going, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning. And you manage to calm down a little bit, and then say you get off to your office, and you have an appointment with your doctor, and they keep you waiting and waiting, and so there you are, and it's 11 a.m., and your stress is already elevated, but you manage to calm down. And then you get home in the evening and you get an upsetting phone call or an upsetting email, whatever it is. Look at where your stress level is at the end of the day compared to when you popped out of bed in the morning. And people begin to get sick now. They have high blood pressure, not sleeping, irritable bowel syndrome. This kind of stress impacts upon the immune system. So all kinds of things happen. So in mind body medicine, my teaching techniques enables people to go through life like this. Things happen, we can recover and calm down. So we learn to roll with life's punches. By the way, the bottom line, according to McEwen, is called allostasis. Allostasis. The top line is allostatic load. Most of the people in America today are experiencing allostatic load. And not good for our health. Okay. Well, this is interesting. Only part of the slide is coming out. It's okay. There's meant to be a whole spinal cord.
In the center.
Anyway, never mind. It's okay. Well, just imagine there's a spinal cord. This is how stress affects the whole body. And these are physical stress warning signs. So, on the top right, most of us recognize the fact that we have muscle tension. We like that outdated in the hammer. When we get down here to the autonomic nervous system, most of us notice that we're stressed, our heart's pounding. Blood pressure goes up. There's clearly an increase in our need for oxygen, and one's breathing rate increases. Palms and face sweat. There's an increase in blood sugar. And there's a correlation between stress and the development of diabetes. An increase in adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol, which are the 3 major stress hormones. And then your digestive tract shuts down, hands get cold. Look on the other column over here on the left-hand side. This is a little bit more subtle, and most people have no idea that stress is having an impact upon the brain. But when we're stressed, our perception of things is very narrow. And we can't retrieve information, and we can't store information. I work with a lot of students at Suffolk Law School, helping them prepare for final exams because they're so anxious and stressed, they can't get the information in, and then they get into the exam and they can't find it, right? So it impacts upon our memory and our learning. In terms of our reactions to things, we become very defensive. We have a tendency to regress. We have outbursts like teenagers. Our view of the future is very negative, and fight-flight. So all kinds of things are going on in the body, and for the most part, we may notice that our heart's pounding. We may notice that we're punching our jaws, things like that. Okay, so these are the physical stress warning signs. Clearly there's a link between stress and all kinds of sleep problems, sexual problems. We actually have an infertility program. And the women who come into our mind-body infertility program have been trying to get pregnant for years. And we have a 46% success rate. Women going through the program getting pregnant, and we're not giving out drugs. What we're doing is teaching people relaxation and hormonal balances get back in place. It's one of the happiest groups on the planet. Cold hands, cold feet, connection between the brain and the gut, that's irritable bowel syndrome, heart palpitations, hypertension, frequent colds and flus, frequent low-grade infections. The bottom two on the right-hand side. When you have stress, it takes a toll on the immune system, and your body is not able to make as many T cells, B cells, macrophage cells, and interferon. And this is why people get sick. Okay, this is from the field of psychoneuroimmunology, PNI for short. And there are some brilliant researchers, Janice Keuchel, Glaser, Ron Glaser, Barbara Anderson, University of Ohio Medical School. This is their model. And they say stress, way up at the top, increases our anxiety and our depression. When we're depressed, we isolate ourselves. That leads to loneliness. Not good for your health. And that emotional upheaval increases norepinephrine, epinephrine, those catecholamines, and cortisol. And just as I said before, that leads to immune suppression. Your body is not able to make as many T cells, B cells, macrophage cells, and interferon, which are four major components of the immune system. And this can accelerate any kind of health problem that's going on, or it can create the development of a health problem. I always say to people who come to my program, I feel so happy that you have come to this group that takes you all the way back up here to step one to give you the skills for dealing with your stress. More than 30% of people 65 years and older complain of insomnia. This is much too small of a percentage. I used to share my office with our insomnia expert, Greg Jacobs, and he says it's at least 70% of people in America have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. You know what one of the problems is? Our sleep cycles are disturbed because of all the electronic devices that we're using. And apparently if we're looking at screens all the time, this is not the kind of light that we should be looking at, and it stimulates different parts of the brain, and it's keeping people on alert. So I tell my patients, get off screen, stop emailing after 9 o'clock at night, stop texting, stop doing any of this, even television. Because people's sleep cycles are very, very disturbed. And this is a very serious condition. I think we're going to hear more and more and more about this. I love this guy. He couldn't sleep, so he brings his car into his picture. We have emotional stress warning signs. People get irritable and angry over very small things. They're restless. They can't sit still. They're worrying about things that worrying won't help. This is usually what we're doing at 3 o'clock in the morning. What if, right? Burst out into tears over small things. We can't concentrate, and we're depressed, and when we're depressed, we isolate ourselves. Now, there's a really interesting researcher. His name is Richie Davidson. And Richie's in the press a lot. Richard Davidson is at University of Madison, Wisconsin. He's a neuroscientist. And Richie has done some really interesting research looking at what stress does in the brain and then teaching relaxation to see what stress happens to stress as a result of practicing relaxation, the changes that are going on in the brain. So he took a group of very stressed out biotech workers, and he gave them psychological questionnaires. And they filled out the questionnaires, and it reflected their negative moods. They were angry, irritable, frustrated, depressed, burned out. He did CAT scans and MRIs of their brains, and all the neuronal activity was in the right prefrontal cortex, which is your center for negative emotion. He taught them a relaxation technique quite similar to what I started with today. Asked them to practice once a day, listening to the CD for 8 weeks. They came back. He asked them to fill out the questionnaires again. All of their answers had changed. They were calm. They were optimistic. They were happy. They expressed appreciation. They did CAT scans and MRIs of their brains again, and now all the neuronal activity was in the left prefrontal cortex, which is your center for positive emotion. Richie Davidson did not give anyone a pill. So practicing these simple techniques changes people's mood. And I see this all the time. People going through my program start to feel better. Maybe I could start to taper off my antidepressant. Maybe I could start to taper off, my anti-anxiety medications. What a relief. So these things not only change us physiologically in terms of our body, but they're changing things up here too. And now we have the technology, we can see this. Okay. Oh, this is a very old photo that I took when our offices were out on Chestnut Hill. You can see that the cars are very old, but most of you probably don't have cars. I did this talk in Boston where, people are so nasty behind the wheels of their cars up in Boston. They're constantly honking and always traffic jams like this. And these people were out of their cars throwing things and cursing and yelling and carrying on, right? You can see this up in Boston, every single day, at least once. And I love when I see people doing this. I love to say, are you making traffic go faster? I'll probably get stabbed one of these days doing this. This is a perfect moment to do a mini. Have any of you ever been to India? Wonderful country, isn't it? This is the commuter train into Calcutta. And now the trains in India aren't quite this bad anymore, but they are bad. People going into the big cities often are clinging to the top of the sides of the train. They're very, very crowded. So I always say to people, if you get upset in traffic, imagine if you had to do this tonight getting here. So it sort of helps calm us down, puts things in perspective. We have cognitive stress warning signs. What you think you become, what you feel you attract, what you imagine you create. People tell me that they lose their short-term memory and they have to put Post-its everywhere.
Could you go back to that?
That's all right.
Go back one.
Sure. Here's hard-charging businessman Billy Sloan. He's about to learn the continued stress inhibits one's memories. He goes out of his house without his trousers on. And I actually had a fellow in one of my groups who was courageous enough to tell us that he had done this.
Oh my God.
He got dressed in the morning. He had his socks and shoes on, shirt, tie, jacket, briefcase in hand. He leaves his apartment. The door slams and locks. Gets to the elevator, pushes the button, and finally looks down. And he's standing there in his boxers. What was he doing when he was getting dressed? He wasn't paying attention. I've had many people tell me that they've gone off to work with two different shoes on. And then my favorite story is a woman up in Boston went off to work with a great big wooden hanger in the back of her coat and rode the subway with this big metal hook sticking out of her coat here, and nobody said anything to this woman. She gets to her office and takes off her coat and plunk, out falls the big wooden hanger. What are we doing? We're mindless. We're so busy paying attention that we're not in the moment. So one of the things I do, this is what we call, it's a cognitive behavioral diary sheet. But one of the things I do is I teach cognitive restructuring. And I get people to, you see across the top line is you write down the stressful event. And then you fill in the first three columns. Well, when you're stressed about something, what happens in your body? You have muscle tension, your heart's pounding, your breath is rapid and shallow. What might your emotions be? Well, I'm feeling anxious, I'm worried, I'm annoyed, I'm frustrated, whatever it might be. What are your negative automatic thoughts that are creating those moods and emotions? And people write down the negative automatic thoughts. Then we learn to find the distortions A lot of the times when we're upset about things, we're magnifying things way out of proportion, we're jumping to conclusions, we're fortune telling, we're labeling ourselves and others, we're disqualifying the positive. Okay, the next time this stressful event happens, is there another way you might prefer to feel? Is there another way you might prefer to think? So I do that over a 2-week period of time. Okay? So jumping to conclusions doesn't count as exercise. We have behavioral stress warning signs, and I call this the doors of compensation. It is very easy when people are upset to say to, oh, I'll just go and take a pill. I'll just pop an Ativan, or I'll just pop an Ambien, and then I'll be able to go to sleep, or whatever it is, right? That doesn't solve the problem. It's not that we're against medications, but we like people to try to learn things to really maximize their health so they can get off of those things. If any of you are taking Ambien, get off of it. It is the worst medication. Do you know the Ambien stories? No. Are any of you taking Ambien? No. Oh, thank God. Let me tell you
a lot of
the stories. Yeah. Ambien, I mean, there's been a lot of press about this lately, but people should get off Ambien because people take it and they wake up in the morning and they're not fully awake. They're like in a sleep coma. And they get into their cars and they're driving and they get off at the wrong exit or they miss their exit or whatever they have, right? So these people are around driving and they're not quite functioning. There are numerous stories about people taking Ambien and they get up in the middle of the night, they go to the fridge and they eat absolutely everything in the fridge and they go back to bed. And they get up in the morning, they come out and they open the refrigerator and they, oh my God, I've been robbed. They have no recollection of this. So it's a very bad medication. There are lots of other things if you need a sleep aid, melatonin, or practice some of the things I've taught you. But we try to get people to not always take pills. Another door of compensation is the door to the fridge. People do very funny things with food when they're stressed. A lot of my patients will say, well, you know, Ann, I paid attention to my diet all day long, and then, 9 o'clock at night I started worrying about everything the next day, and I went to the fridge, I ate a whole pint of ice cream, and now I just hate myself. Or I have patients who stop eating. Another door of compensation is the door to the liquor cabinet or recreational drugs. So we have behaviors that are created by stress as well. Then there are spiritual stress warning signs. Life has no meaning and purpose. We lose our capacity to be kind and empathic. A loss of sense of connection to self and others, and I exemplified that by talking to you about the Duke study. We don't have a lot of close friends anymore. I think the fourth one is definitely happening in America. Belief that acquiring more and more things are going to make us happier. If I just had the latest iPhone, all my problems would be solved. Doesn't seem to happen. Not practicing altruism. In your handouts, there's a sheet of paper that says attitude of gratitude. And I ask all of my patients to keep a gratitude journal. And then to write in it every single day. And when they come into the program, I'll just go around and I say to people, well, what did any of you put into your attitude of gratitude journal this week? And I will get smiles. You focus on things that you're grateful for. It totally changes your mood instead of always worrying about what you have not. And why did I do this? There's a fellow named Robert Emmons, E-M-M-O-N-S. Emmons has a book out called Thanks. And Emmons conducted studies, he's on the West Coast, looking at the health benefits of gratitude. And he took a group of people and he randomized them to one of 3 groups. A group that was going to keep a gratitude journal, writing it every day. A group that was going to keep a journal just of simply benign day-to-day things. And a group of people that were going to write about negative things. So they were writing it every single day for 8 weeks. He looked at all kinds of characteristics about these groups pre and post. The group that kept gratitude journals were in way better shape at the end of the study compared to the other 2. They were more optimistic, they were more social, they took better care of their health physically in terms of diet and exercise. set goals. I may have said that already. So about 5 different indices. They were in way better condition than the other 2 groups. Needless to say, the people who kept journals of negative things got to very bad ones. So based upon Eamon's research, all of us had put attitude and gratitude journals into our programs for our patients. And if you see patients, I highly recommend that you suggest these to your clients, whatever, but also keep an attitude and gratitude journal yourself. Okay. What was the last one? Should you go back 1 second? Oh, not content, just to be quiet. I have an interesting story. I was over in India a number of years ago, and I met this really interesting man. He said to me, every now and then I have a day of dedicated silence. I said, a day? Maybe I could do an hour. So I came back to the States, and I started practicing an hour of silence. It felt pretty good. Then I got up to 2 hours. Then I got up to half a day. Now I spend Sunday in silence until 6 p.m. It's one of the best times of my entire week. I am just with myself. I get all kinds of creative ideas. I'm not on the phone. I'm not on my computer. If I go out and I walk around, someone speaks to me, I'll speak back. But otherwise, I'm totally present with everything that's around me. So I highly suggest practices. Just try an hour and notice what it does for you. Very refreshing. Okay. Here's a spiritual stress warning sign. I'll have a nice day when I get damn good and ready. Usually someone says to me, how did you get my husband in here? Okay. Now, this brings me to the relaxation response. Our clinic is famous for this. And I taught you a relaxation response exercise at the beginning of my talk. The relaxation response is simply a state of quiet in the mind and the body. It calms down your sympathetic nervous system, which keeps everything revved up, and it quiets the noise of your mind. And as a result of practicing this, all kinds of wonderful health things happen. I would say maybe 50% of the people who come through my successful aging program have hypertension, and they're all on meds. To a person, they get their blood pressure down into the normal range, and they can get off of their medication. And I had a woman call me. She was in my last group. She said, Ann, I've had hypertension for the longest time. I'm still listening to your CD every day. My blood pressure's gone down a little, but not enough for me to get off my medication. So I added a second relaxation practice. I listened to your CD 2 times a day, and now my blood pressure's down in the normal range, and I'm no longer taking meds. This is great stuff. That's great. So all kinds of things happen. Okay. Now, there are lots of different techniques that elicit relaxation. Okay? And you practiced this sort of Tai Chi thing earlier. That's one of them. You're present and focused. You're working with your breath. So I did a form of meditation with you. There are sound, whether you're listening to peaceful music, harp or bells or whatever. Diaphragmatic breathing. I teach this when I teach yoga to my groups. Imagery and visualization. I use a lot of that. Imagining our immune system's getting stronger. I teach yoga, and the yoga I do is very, very simple. We do standing stretches, chair yoga, and if everybody can get down on the floor and roll on the mats, we can. If not, I can do chair yoga. And I've run this program at an assisted living center in Massachusetts, Boston, called Goddard House.